Puffs is about a certain school of magic, and it follows a very famous franchise about that school, and it's told from the perspective of the Puff house, and it specifically looks at the journey of Wayne, Megan, and Oliver and their time at that school and what happens to them.
Throughout the play, he's trying to find himself, kind of, and find his inner powers.
I would say the main themes of Puffs are loyalty, friendship, how we change and grow up, what growing up is like. A friend of mine in 2019 designed the set and did some of the special effects for Susquehannock High School's production of Puffs. I went to see it at Susquehannock and fell in love with it. And pretty much as I was sitting there watching it, I was like, we're gonna do this show. So that was really my first full experience with Puffs.
If you're thinking about doing theater, I definitely recommend it. I feel like if you are trying to figure out your interests or figuring out where you kind of fit in high school, especially freshmen, I feel like a lot of freshmen did the play, then I definitely recommend doing theater because it kind of gives you like a home base if you're ever lost or trying to figure out where you fit in.
I really enjoy casting. It's very enjoyable to me to look at the group of people that come out to audition and figure out where they're going to best fit for our production. The audition process changes from show to show, and certainly if it's a play versus a musical, it's different. So for Puffs specifically, we looked at having people come in and prepare a very, very short monologue.
The audition was, I think it was fairly easy for me specifically because I went in knowing the characters, knowing the monologues. I think it was a fairly stress-free process.
So Puffs is an interesting show in that it was originally written for 11 actors to play all of the characters. And those 11 characters, or those 11 actors originally doubled up and played all of those different characters. So everyone with the exception of the narrator, Wayne, Megan, and Oliver, played tons of characters. So as we were having audition signups come in and I saw, okay, we're more than 11, now we're more than 15, now we've got like 20. What I started to do was look at the way the show had been doubled up originally and kind of breaking those apart into roles that would be able to be played by a larger cast. So we still ended up with most everyone playing multiple people. What I chose to do was break the Puffs away from their doubled up characters, which gave us a larger number of people.
I did not think I was going to get Wayne. I initially thought I was going to get Oliver, but I was pleasantly surprised when the cast list came out.
It was definitely an adventure. I feel like it definitely brought me out of my comfort zone because you kind of have to be like a leader, like you're in a leadership position and you have to like know what you're doing before you tell anyone else what they're doing. I really enjoyed it and it was stressful at times and you definitely need to like know what you're committing to. It's definitely going to be a lot of time and effort that you have to put into it, but yeah, honestly it was a really, really fun experience and I loved it and I definitely recommend it.
Lots of different people design sets here. We've had many different folks over the years design stuff. Mr. March has designed some, Billy Farrell, Ray Olweiler. And so Puffs is also unique in its set in that the bones of Puffs, the set was designed by Billy Farrell for Trixie the Teen Detective, which was our fall show last year in the 2021-2022 school year. And so he designed Trixie, and the walls that were in Puffs were the Haunted Mansion of Trixie. And through various circumstances, we realized, oh, this is going to work for the next show if we change this. This is going to work for the next show. And then I realized that it was going to work really well for Puffs. So really I would say like Billy Farrell designed the bones of Puffs, but then I was the person to look at those bones and be like, here's what we're going to do to make the set for Puffs. So an average rehearsal, if we're still in the blocking stages, we will read through the scene that we're planning to block that night, and then we'll talk about anything that we need to talk about in terms of what's happening in the text, what characters are feeling, maybe different deliveries to try, and then we'll get it up on its feet. So I'll tell the actors, kind of the bones of where I want them to stand and what I want the picture of the scene to be like. And then we just start rehearsing that scene a bunch of times and trying different things, making different choices. And as you move through a rehearsal process, then if you're finished blocking a show, you might be running an act or a few scenes together, and then you get into dress rehearsals and all of that good stuff.
Average rehearsal is Jay Finch teaching us how to hit the quad. All of the actors put a lot of work and effort into the play, and especially for Puffs. I feel like Puffs is definitely like a mental play. Like there's definitely your brain has to. Miss Hoke has said this before. Your brain has to be on the entire show.
I think that for this show, having more frequent evening rehearsals made this cast bond a lot more. I think there was a lot more time for some folks to be together.
During rehearsals, I feel like it kind of depends on if you're an assistant stage manager or just a normal stage manager. Molly, you were a assistant director / stage manager, so what Molly was doing was kind of just like helping Miss Hoke, but what I was doing was just reading people's lines for people who weren't there, answering people's questions if they had any, helping people find props if they didn't know where they were, and assisting Miss Hoke.
So I liked when we had the chance to just run through the show and enjoy ourselves and have fun being Puffs before we actually had the stress of Tech Week.
I feel like the middle is kind of a good point where it feels like you're kind of going to be doing it forever.
Tech Week is the week where we add all of the technical elements. So the actors have been working on their part of the show, which is bringing these characters to life and figuring out how they move and entrances and exits. And then Tech Week, we're adding light, sound, costumes, props, all of that good stuff. Run crew who's moving set and doing special effects.
It's really exciting, taking care of all the things that you have to do, but it's also really stressful remembering all of them.
Tech Week has been called Hell Week numerous times. It's where you try to balance school along with staying after school until 9:30 p.m. for every single night for an entire week.
Oh my god, hell on earth. There are two ends of the hallways and people are constantly running through that hallway. So I would have to change Sydney's costume down here and Jay would be at the other end waiting for me to help her put a wig on. So I think that was just all the running that I had to do was really hard.
I think that this, looking back on this production, was probably one of our smoothest texts that we've had. We did have, one illness that popped up that we were like, oh my gosh, we should figure out who can play this role if they don't get better, but they did get better. We had some special effects that took some time to get used to, but we've had shows in the past where set pieces have broken in tech and really bad things have happened, and I wouldn't say that anything like that happened during this tech week.
At first, it was very hard because I went in there and I didn't know any of the lines or any of the cues, and so I had never watched it before, and I don't think I ever watched it fully. But I had pages where my costume change were supposed to go, along with other costume changes that the cast asked for.
I liked when I died. My character dies at the very end of the play, and it's really weird to say, but I really like dying on stage. Falling over, it's kind of really fun.
The most stressful part, I would say, is that moment that happens in every show when you're wondering if it's going to take that step from where it is to what you want it to be, or where you hoped it would get. And luckily, I would say pretty much every show does make that step, but there is always that moment of like, are we gonna get there? Are they gonna do this? That's always stressful.
Strike, that is when we would all, Miss Hope would divvy us up into teams. We would tear down the set. We would put away all the props and the costumes.
So really just getting rid of everything that you've been working on for the last like 2 or 3 months. My one word for the Puffs experience would be joy. I think that this show was probably my, I don't want to say favorite. It was probably the most fun that I've ever had working on a show because I really connect to and love the source material that Puffs is based on. But it's also just a really fun show. It's really funny. It's challenging, to figure out the technical elements and how it's all going to work. I really enjoyed the cast and the crew. They were a really great cast and crew this time. And just the joy of seeing everyone put the show to life and how much the audience enjoyed it as well. So really seeing everybody like playing games together or sitting in a circle and talking. We made our wands for the show. Everyone made their own wands. And so really just getting to see the way that this show was bringing everyone together was really special.
So my favorite part about the Puffs experience was that costume change with Sydney, like her running down the hallway, was always super funny. And Limbo, just Limbo himself. I'm not going to explain more on that.
It's a tough show. Puffs has an enormous amount of props, most of which we had to create because they're like weird things that we don't have in stock, like the Goblet of Fire or wands that everyone has to use. It also had a large number of sound effects, which yes, we had the blessing of being able to rent them, but figuring out how they go in the script, how they're timed, what the actors are doing, and then having crew hit those cues at the right time is a lot. There were a lot of lighting effects and cues, a lot of costumes and quick changes because there are so many characters. So definitely one of the most difficult shows.
It's very funny seeing everyone do all this stuff, like Limbo, for example, or like hearing people have voice cracks on stage is very funny.
Like being in Puffs definitely influenced the people that are around me now, especially like with the cast. I don't know if it was that specific cast or that it was the first play of the year or the freshmen coming into high school or that specific play, but I feel like that play definitely brought us all together, and I have so many new friendships because of it.
Theater is magic and special, and I think if you've never done it, it's something that you can't really understand until you experience it. There's really nothing else that equates to being together with your castmates and your crewmates and working really hard to build this thing that is telling a story, but it's entertaining people and it's bringing joy to other people's lives. And when that audience is applauding or they're giving you feedback or telling you oh, I really needed to laugh, thank you for making me laugh, it's just really unique and special, and gives you a huge sense of accomplishment that I think very few other activities or hobbies or whatever you want to call it in our lives can do. And it's not as scary as people think, because we have tons of rehearsal time, and the more you rehearse, the more it sets you up to memorize lines and to remember what you're doing and to feel really confident and know that you're portraying a character rather than you yourself out there on stage, which is so much less scary. So everyone should try it at least one time.
Thank you to everyone who told me where to put your costumes and what to do with them. If you didn't,